30 seconds. So come on in while you're coming in. Have a seat. There's plenty of seats in the front. There's seats everywhere. But as everybody's coming in, let me do some introduction because I don't want to waste time. So my name is Dr. Jonathan Cresci. I am the owner of Fundamental Sounds, which is an audio production company and record label. I am also the assistant professor of sound recording technology now at Texas A&M University Kingsville, which is down in Corpus. Well, it's south of Corpus Christi in Kingsville, with a town that no one knows of. However, it does have the best Indian food restaurant rated in Texas. Crazy enough. It's called Spice Station, and it's badass. I mean, it's great. It's great Indian food cooked by Pakistanis. It's fantastic. No, Spice Station, man. It won awards. Like, people travel from Dallas to eat at Spice Station, which is crazy. So, and here I am, like going to work, and people are like, "Hey, we should go to Spice Station." I'm like, "What's that?" An Indian food restaurant. And I'm like, "In Kingsville? Are you kidding me?" Anyway, so I'm actually from here. I'm from Baltimore. My wife and I moved to Kingsville, moved to Corpus Christi when she got a job. And so then I promptly got a job teaching down in Kingsville. So if you've seen my panels before I was just working at Fundamental Sounds, which is my company, when I was in Arkansas. And now I do both. So there you go. And before that, I was at Frederick Community College, where I started the recording program there, which is in this area. So today we're going to be talking about, I shortened the title. I realized how long that title was, so I shortened it. I was trying to put a lot of clickbait in it to get a lot of people here, but there you go. So we're going to be producing professional audio for content creation, because I figure that's what you guys want to do, so that's what we'll do. As you can tell from what you're listening to, the majority of what I do is music. But now I've been doing a lot of other stuff too, because that's just the way the industry is. So that's what we're working for. So here's my information. That QR code brings you to the website. The website will be changing very soon. It'll be the same website address, but right now it's a little wonky. But you can email me. You can go to Twitter, I guess. I'll check it once in a while, maybe. But email me if you have any questions. One of the things that's really important about MAGFest is I want to come here and teach you all what you want to know. And so if you've got a burning question or something that you think would be a great topic, send it to me, because I spend, like a month trying to figure out what people want to talk about, and no one's ever told me. So, and then I just send it to the panels department and hope one of it's okay, all right? So we're going to do that. This is a panel that we do every once in a while, right? This started out as how to record better voiceovers, and then we sort of expanded into other things. But generally what we're going to be discussing today is we're going to be discussing the idea of how we can stop having bad audio. So like everybody else in this room, well, I don't want to say that. Like a lot of people, like I don't watch TV anymore. Like most of the time I'm just watching YouTube. So I guess I am watching TV, but it's YouTube. And I mean, my wife and I will watch YouTube like it's cable. That's what we're doing. And it's really bad when the audio is bad. Like it makes you turn it off immediately. Like you're like, nope, we're moving on. And there's a lot of that. And so part of this is to talk about it, because everything on YouTube is all about how do you make your video better. And honestly, I can watch bad video. That's fine. But boy, if somebody's clipping or if it's too soft, like that's a big thing now where like it'll be soft and then the YouTube commercial comes on, like the commercial for Prevacid or whatever, it'll show up and it'll be like super loud, all right? So we can talk a little bit how you can mitigate that a bit using the standards that YouTube talks about. But one of those big things, the other thing I wanted to say is that I want this to be as user-driven as possible. So if you have questions or thoughts or comments, please go ahead and ask that question so it can help move the discussion. So one of the things I want to ask, I asked a little bit before, how many here are content creators? Raise your hand. Right? How many people here are engineers? Raise your hand. Amateur. That's fine. That's fine. All right, good. So I'm going to do a little bit of both for everybody, all right? But we're going to lean a little bit more into the content creation. But engineers out there, this is for you too, because you're going to have clients and you need to coach them through this stuff. Trust me, all right? So first thing is, good audio is invisible, but bad audio distracts. Okay, it's bad. I learned this when I was working with a group on Twitch. Like the reason they hired me was because they were getting comments that your audio is unlistenable. And you'd think on Twitch that it wouldn't matter, like people be watching it or whatever, but they weren't. They were like turning it on and then going and doing something else, and all they were doing is listening to it. And so it really is important that your audio becomes invisible, and it does feel like, if I can just kvetch just a little bit, it feels like the audio engineers don't get any love anymore. Like we're not the videographers, so like no one cares. Like no one cares that like we don't have 8K audio. Like everybody's like, oh, we'll just give you an MP3, it's fine, right? Like they don't care about any kind of quality with audio, but it is really important. So we should be thinking about that. The other thing is I took the slide out that there really aren't any solutions to your problems. There's only trade-offs. But the one thing that we want to think about is we want our solutions, or the things that we do to make our audio better, we want them to serve the project, because the project is what we're looking at. So for instance, my first panel was about Dolby Atmos, right? And Dolby Atmos is a really cool thing, but you really need to be thinking about Dolby Atmos in terms of the project. What are you trying to do? Right? Like, what is the purpose of the usage of Dolby Atmos? Okay? It's like there was a really, really good panel on audio for animation. Was anybody at the audio for animation? We've got one. I know Adam was. Okay. The audio for animation panel was great because they were talking about stuff and how audio, in the terms of that project, had to serve the narrative of the animation project. So they were talking about doing sound design and all of that. And that is something that we can do also when we're working with YouTube and that audio. We have to make sure that it is invisible, but it does serve the project. Now, I forgot to turn on the voice memo, but I did turn it on now, so we'll see if it works. There we go. All right. So there are 4 elements we're going to potentially discuss today. I broke this down. I'm trying not to be snarky, okay? But there are 4 things that I think you can control as a creator, and there are 3 things that you can control or hope to control as an engineer. And each one leads into the next one. So we start out with the talent. Yes, the talent is the most important thing. When I talk about the talent, I mean the performer. That could be you, right? Or if you're an engineer, that could be the person who hired you, or your friend who's giving you pizza and beer to do it, okay? The talent is important. So we're going to talk about that, because that is what leads into other things. The next thing that's important is, where are you doing this? Like, where are you recording the talent, your space? That is important. Those 2 things are what lead you into the talking about equipment and then the technique, okay? Equipment doesn't fix anything, right? I'm a recovering GAS, right? Gear addicted syndrome, or whatever it is, gear acquisition syndrome. I want to buy everything that I see on Reverb. I think it's cool. I just want the stuff, right? But it won't actually make anything any better, right? We have to start at the source. And this is something that I'm noticing. I'm doing a lot of work down in Kingsville in South Texas now, and a lot of it is mariachi and Tejano music and conjunto music and banda music, stuff that I had no experience with until I got there. And all of the bands are I don't want to say that they're amateur, because they're very good, but they're not used to having like professional workflows in front of them. And so you really do, I got to see how having the talent be prepared is super important. I'll tell you one story really quick. I worked with a band that came in where it was a mathcore band. I don't know what that is necessarily. It just sounded like black metal to me, so it is, I get it. But the singer, right, who has the most, what you would consider the most strenuous job, was super prepared and came in and like 2.5 hours, whole 7-song EP done. 2.5 hours. Sounded great. Like 3 takes for each song. It was fine, right? Guitarist, 7 hours to do 1 song. Okay? It was rough. And like it made everybody just like, it was not pleasant, right? So we have to be prepared, and we have to think about that when it comes to talent. All right, so the talent. I say it could be you, maybe it's somebody else, right? If you're an engineer, you need to know what the talent wants. If you're the talent, you need to know what you want, Okay, what are we trying to do? We need to define the project, understand your influences. Like if you're doing something that involves podcasting, what's your favorite podcast? What are you listening to that in your brain equals podcast, right? So like that Twitch stream group, they listen to Critical Role a lot. And so when they were like, well, what's your influence? Critical Role. Okay, so I went and listened to Critical Role to get the idea of what timbre they were expecting. Okay, because we craft sound. Okay, and we want to keep the end in mind, meaning we want to, again, focus on the project. I know that this isn't probably what you were expecting an audio engineer to talk about, but I will tell you, man, every time a talent walks in and says they don't know what they want, I just close my eyes and go, oh my God, God help us. We're going to be here all day, right? Because you really got to know, as a talent, what you want. And again, your recording is only as good as the performance. Right? There is nothing we can do as recording engineers to make you better. Yes, if you have a wonderful performance and you sing out of tune, I can fix that. I would rather you not sing out of tune, but I can fix it. I can fix you being out of time if it is a good performance. But if you are hot garbage, there is nothing I can do to make you better, okay? So that's really important. So what that means, as talent, you need to practice. Now, how many of you here as content creators are either voice actors or something that deals with your voice? All right, very good. How many people here are musicians? Well, that do stuff, their content creation is music. All right, sort of. All right, good. So let's talk a little bit about voiceover, okay? Now, this is from a engineer's perspective. I don't voice act, okay? I don't act. I don't even know how to act, right? I actually thought about recording a voiceover for this, but I was like, no, that's not going to be good, all right? So I stay in my lane. But these are some of the things that I know from working with voice actors that help the engineer, okay? We call them voice actors is because they're actually acting. It just happens to be that their image might not be on the screen when you do it, right? Does that make sense? Like, you are an actor. So when voiceover artists ask me, like what do I do to get, well, take acting lessons, be an actor, that's what you're supposed to do. But what I would think about is you want to project, okay? So I'll do a slight demonstration. So like if I'm sitting here in front of the microphone and I feel like I want to say something really soft and I like this. And then the engineer is like, I can't hear you, and then they get closer to the microphone. Well, this sounds different than here. So what you have to do, and I'm not a voice actor, but I'm going to try, okay, is I'm going to whisper, right? This is me being soft but still being loud. Does that make sense? Like, you can be soft but still be loud because you're projecting and using your air to make it fuller. Because and we'll talk about this in the technique, as you move closer to the microphone, your timbre changes. And so what a lot of singers are doing, at least in the mariachi field where I'm down there, is they will start here, and then when they sing really loud, because it's an incredibly dynamic music, they come back here. The problem is when, now I'm not going to sing, I'm really loud now, right back here, but my voice now has no low end. And then you get that in the mix, and all of a sudden you get really beefy and then really thin. And you hear that shift as they move back and forth. So they really need to not move, right? Or at least move very little. And to try to change that volume with their performance. So as voice actor, you really do need to feel, like when you watch voice actors online on YouTube, I hope that it's not staged, but when you watch them talk, you'll notice that they're very animate with their hands, but their torso generally stays relatively still. The only time I've ever really seen it go just like over the top was when I was watching the Disney recordings of Aladdin, okay? We're not even in Atlanta. I don't know why I said that. So anyway, so like Aladdin, when you're watching Robin Williams do the genie, he moves a lot. And I don't know how they got it to be all like, how they got the timbre to stay the same, because we can get the volume to stay the same easy. But that timbre aspect of it is a real tricky to deal with. The only thing I can think of is the microphone was far enough away, because it was like way up here, that the movement didn't matter because he was already away from sort of this proximity effect zone, okay? So your performance matters. Practice, okay? Practice doing this. Be the anchor man. I never watched Anchorman. Does he practice an Anchorman? Like where he watches himself and like practices in a mirror? I don't know. There was some television show about I don't know, weathermen or something that did that. But like practice doing your acting, practice doing your stuff for your podcast. Now, if you do move a lot, we can talk about how we can fix that with technology. Okay? But we want to try to stay still. Look at the podcasters. Right? I don't know, like, Joe Rogan's just like this. He just sits like this and talks like this all day with his he never moves. It's just what he does. You look at people on the radio, they talk like this. They're like up here all day, right? They never move their head. They never do anything. And that's because they're trying to avoid the different timbral changes, okay? Next is space, all right? Where you're doing this. This also informs our technology, okay? And this is like overview. Right? I could get into the weeds, and if you want me to get into the weeds, I will, but, be careful what you ask for. All right? PSA, we did this last year. Soundproofing is not room treatment. Okay? Soundproofing is when you try to prevent unwanted sounds getting into your room. Okay? This is hard. This is very hard. Because, like here, we can all be quiet, and we can hear everything. Okay? One of the reasons we can hear is not just because the walls are thin, but it's because above the walls, there's nothing, right? This ceiling is probably not real, right? It's not, there's probably space above it that connects everything. So sound is bleeding in through there. We're all on a concrete slab. So I was giving a presentation on acoustics last year in, I don't know, panels 2 maybe, and the orchestra was playing, and every time the low brass would play, you would hear it like they were sitting right next to you. And it was because they vibrate through the floor, right? So when you're talking about soundproofing, it's very difficult. So you got to try to find a place in your house or in your place of doing business, wherever that is. I'm assuming most people are doing this in their house, where it can be quiet and you can control the noise, okay? Which also probably means that you may want to do it uncomfortably. So for instance, if you have an air conditioner that makes a lot of noise, when you're taping, you get to be hot. That's the way that is, right? You don't put a fan on in the room. That's not okay. You will hear that, right? This is, I started out, like my business started out as being an on-site engineer for symphonies and choirs and things like that, and that was the worst thing. Was like when you'd be having this nice performance, and then all of a sudden the air conditioner would kick on, and it would just be like, boom, and you're like, oh, great. Now I got to go see if I can fix that, right? It's awful. Room treatment, on the other hand, is creating the sound of your room. So this is something that you can control with things like absorbers and diffusers. Okay, I highly recommend going to some of the places like GIK Acoustics or other acoustic manufacturers, because they will be more than happy to get pictures of your room and measurements and tell you what you need to make it better. Okay, there's also software called Room EQ Wizard, that if you buy a $50 microphone on Amazon, a USB microphone, which is the only time I will ever use a USB microphone, and you can measure your room and you can kind of see where the different frequencies are that need to be worked on, okay? Most people here will not have a room large enough to use diffusers. Diffusers have to be approximately 6 feet away from you to do anything, okay? And if you're in a bedroom, that means you're like 2 feet away from your wall, right? Or whatever. Maybe you've got a bigger bedroom. But still, it's one of those things where diffusers, they look cool, but most of the time don't do anything for the size spaces we're dealing with. However, absorbers do stuff, okay? Like bass traps. They absorb low frequencies, and that's usually where small room acoustics go funky, is all the low boominess. I generally say stay away from the foam on the walls, like just going to Guitar Center and buying the acoustic foam, because that won't work. However, for voiceover, what you're generally trying to do is eliminate room echo. Like you're trying to eliminate the high frequency bit of the echo, and in that sense, that kind of stuff can help. Or like piano blankets, or things that will absorb couches. Like if you have a couch, like get a bunch of couches, Like I did that once. We recorded a drum set at one of my schools in this big room, and so I went and we rated all the couches from the building, and we stacked the couches around the drum set, and it worked great, right? So if you have a bunch of couches, you can like stuff them in the corners of your room, and because they're fuzzy and fluffy, they will absorb high frequencies. They won't do anything else, but they'll absorb high frequencies and thus make the room less echoey sounding and annoying. Yes, sir?
You can also get a bunch of moving blankets from Harbor Freight.
Yes, they do work, yes.
Yeah. I typically record podcasts in a small walk-in closet, and that has lots of clothing, like to my sides. That'll also do really well, or like you were saying with blankets, like my mother was dealing with my father working from home and had to put up big blankets across the door so that the sound wouldn't like reverberate through the downstairs to the upstairs.
Right. And remember, you do get what you pay for. So if you go to Harbor Freight and buy a bunch of piano blankets, you're going to get some stuff happening, but it might not be the best or as controllable as getting high frequency absorbers from like an acoustic company. But yes, one thing that I would worry, so the thought was about doing a podcast inside a closet, right? You have to worry a little bit about that because it might sound like you're in a closet, depending on how big your walk-in closet is, right? And people have asked me that, like, how come my voiceover sounds like I'm in a closet? And I'm like, where'd you record it? In a closet. Well, that's why it sounded like it's in a closet, right? Because it will. I mean, that's what we're doing, right? So what I recommend when you do that is you may want to maybe put the microphone, like, in the closet and speak into the closet, or you might want to sit in the closet and speak out to the microphone. Because think about it, the business end of this microphone is here, right? Over here, not hearing that so much, are you, right? And so if you're sitting in the closet, right, and you're talking out to the microphone, I'm not saying put it in the middle of your room, but like put it close to you, wherever, 6 inches away. The microphone, your sound is coming out into the room, being picked up by the microphone. It'll reflect off the wall, but it's being, as we'll see in a second, it's being canceled out by the pattern of the microphone, right? This is a cardioid microphone, so it doesn't pick up what's behind it. But it's also leaking past the microphone, and if you're in a normal room, it will reflect off the wall behind you and go right back into the microphone because it's behind you. But if you're in a closet, if you are in the closet, speaking out of the closet, then when the sound comes back, it'll enter the closet that has all of the clothes, right? Not an empty closet, so a closet filled with wonderful fluffy things, that it will then absorb those high frequencies and it'll be less impactful. Again, I'm not saying that you can, this eliminates the need of building a voiceover booth or something if you're really serious about it, but it does work. Yes, sir.
How do you feel about those stands that have those like shield-looking things?
Yeah, so, yes, I own those. I do own some of those. So he asked about the shields that go on microphones. They reflex shields, I think. No, not a pop filter. We'll talk about that in a second. But like it's a shield that goes behind it, and they call them like portable vocal booths and stuff. I don't feel like they work so good, right? They work well if you're trying to prevent bleed from something else. But again, it's still picking up all the reflections behind you. So it would work in the context of sitting in the closet, or putting up, blankets behind you or whatever, but it might not work if you have nothing behind you. Right, focus on where the business end of the microphone is. Wherever the microphone is hearing, that's what you want. Think of it as like a camera. This microphone is pointed at my mouth. It is hearing everything that is coming out of it. And so, for instance, if I don't like the way my sibilances are, I could just go like this, and now it'll be a little less. However, if I'm a heavy breather and I have my microphone down here, and then I'm going, because my nose goes this way, that's a problem. So you might have to raise the microphone up so that you're up here. And now I'm actually technically underneath the microphone, right? And I sound completely different. But you're going to get a lot less popping. Peep, 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 pop, pop. I get a little bit, but not as much. And that's because I'm pointed at my nose, right? And so all of my sound is down here, and the business end is not picking it up. Well, I mean, it is, but it's off axis, so it's less. So always worry about what's in front of the microphone. In fact, we'll do this. That sounds pretty good. All right. So Any other questions about your space? Yes?
Your mic's picking up a lot of, or is generating a lot of feedback, for example, live band performance recording. What's the best way to address feedback through a microphone?
That's a good question. Now, I will say this. I am not a live sound engineer. Yes, I must repeat the question. Thank you. The question was, actually, could you repeat the question again so I remember?
If you're performing in a band live, for example, and your mic is generating a lot of feedback and it's intermittent, right? What's the best way to make that go away?
Okay, so if your mic, performing in a live band, if your mic is giving you feedback intermittently, what's the best way to fix that? The best way to fix it, I mean, I can be cheeky about this and just be like, you're going to have to turn yourselves down. Right, that's really the thing. So when you have a live sound engineer, what they're going to do is they're going to do something called ringing the room out, which means they're going to play something, usually a recording of the band now. People, they play like an actual recording through the room, and they get it as loud as they can, and then they start finding, like they'll start hearing the feedback, and the feedback will be on certain frequencies. And they'll take an EQ and they'll pull those frequencies out. They'll use a graphic equalizer, and then they can pull a little louder. So if your object is to play as loud as possible, you're going to need some kind of feedback eliminator or a graphic equalizer to do it. Other ways to do it is to make sure you're using microphones that are cardioid-based and highly directional, so that it doesn't pick up what's around it. It only picks up what's directly in front of it. And then I also think, like, one of the things is you may need to turn your microphones down, right? And you just have to be louder. Does that make sense? Like, you got to get closer to the mic and be louder, because when you step away, you don't want that mic to feedback. And also, just FYI, good live sound engineers will live mute microphones. So they'll sit there and they won't just drink a coffee while you're playing. They will be there muting players and microphones. Like when the lead guitarist, who's the backup singer, is playing their solo, they mute the mic. And then they wait, and so you actually have like a script of what's going on, and they will mute and unmute. And that, again, is to enhance loudness, like the louder you want to be. Okay? Yes, question?
Well, just if this microphone works, I can help carry it around. Did you want so that you can pick up on the questions?
Sure, go ahead. Thank you. Make sure it's on. I don't know if it's on. Tap it once. Yeah, it's on.
Sounds good.
You had a question?
You mentioned using directional microphones. I think a lot of times feedback in a live situation happens from hypercardioid because it has a tail. And so basically it's higher chance for a hypercardioid to pick up feedback as opposed to a regular cardioid, even though it's projecting the sides from the other band and stuff. So a lot of people buy hypercardioid thinking that that'll eliminate feedback, but it can make it worse.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point, and we're going to get that to tools, like the different stuff. Yes, sir.
Back there. You're gonna make me run, huh? You're good. Whoa. All right. Yeah. Here you go.
Hi. My question is that like I'm a Twitch streamer, so mostly I have my microphone on my desk, but it picks up my my PC fans and stuff like that. I'm not really knowledgeable about like sound quality when it comes to readjusting anything. So what do you suggest? Is a boom arm a little bit more efficient so it doesn't pick around the background noises? Because my PC and all my other stuff is in the living room. So I'm just trying to like figure out like the best type of sound quality for that. So it just like muffles out everything on the outside, so it just focuses on my voice.
Right. Okay. That's a good thing. So we're going to hold that question right now because we're going to hit tools, and I think it'll help you. Okay. All right. So here we go. Our tools. So we've gone to our space. We're going to be singing into our closets. We're going to do stuff, right? One other thing about the acoustic stuff that we've seen is like online a long time ago, there was a thing where you could get packing cubes, or not packing cubes, like IKEA cubes, and stuff them with foam and put your microphone in it, and then they would talk into it. Again, it's the same thing. I feel like that is very much a problem because it'll sound like your microphone's in a small cube, right? And it'll be weird. So I like it better of maybe putting the microphone in the room and then isolating yourself behind it, right, from in front of it. Gives it a little bit more natural sound. So our tools, we have basically hardware and software. We're going to talk about hardware, basically is our microphones, okay? You have two choices. You can get a condenser microphone, which is very, very sensitive and very clean and low noise and all of this stuff. It's very wonderful, but again, it is super sensitive. Or you can use a dynamic microphone like these, which aren't as sensitive, okay? They require very loud sounds to make them work. Why we use in radio and in podcasting, why everybody uses an SM7B is because it's a dynamic microphone used in the radio industry that does a very good job of getting rid of sound, because if it's not loud enough to make it heard, it won't be heard. So if you're close to the mic, everything else bleeds away, okay? And that may be a possibility with what you're doing. I don't know what mic you're using, but maybe... Okay, so he is using one of the Shure products, so it's probably a dynamic microphone. So we have to think about maybe positioning then, which is in technique. So you have to choose, do you want to do condenser, do you want to do dynamic? The problem with buying a dynamic is that they're cheaper, which is not a problem, it's really great, but then you have to buy a more expensive interface or preamp in order to make them loud enough without having noise. Now you can use what is called a booster, a mic booster, which is like a little thing you plug into the back of the mic that runs off phantom power and will raise the level, the output level of a dynamic mic by 20 dB. And that can be very helpful for people who have very low-powered interfaces. So really, you're going to pay one way or the other, right? You're going to pay either by buying an expensive condenser microphone, or you're going to buy a cheaper dynamic, so you have to buy an expensive preamp. So that's one of those things. Question? Go ahead, say, what's your question?
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead. So go ahead and ask your question again.
The dynamic with a PM, you said?
Oh, sorry, a preamp.
Preamp. Okay.
Preamp. So an amplifier that amplifies the microphones. Okay. So if you buy a dynamic microphone, the thing is dynamic microphones do not have a lot of gain, right? They don't have a lot of level coming out of them. It's usually like negative 52 dB, which means your preamp has to go up approximately negative 50 dB without any kind of noise being introduced. Like the preamp itself will have, it's called self noise. You'll hear it hiss. And that is because when you turn your preamp up, it'll hiss because the preamp is making the noise, right? And that's a problem. So higher, you can go ahead and sit down. Thank you very much. So one second. So the idea is that if you use a higher quality preamp, you will end up with a cleaner sound, and thus you can make it louder and handle the dynamic microphone output. But again, they do make these little things called mic boosters. Some people call them cloud lifters, which is like saying Kleenex, because that's a brand of mic booster is cloud lifter, which, by the way, I do not like them at all. I think they sound weird, and I'm the only one in the world that does, so just FYI. I don't know why. I just don't like them. I have many of them, and they don't sound good to me. But anyway, they will boost the output of the mic. So they act as like a preamplifier, if that makes sense. Like they amplify the sound before they get to your amplifier. Thus, you don't have to turn it up as much, and you won't introduce any noise into your system. Now, your question.
Is it feasible to...
Go ahead, wait until you get the microphone, pass it down.
Since we're using the preamp just to boost the volume of whatever's coming into the mic, is it feasible to do that in the software layer after the fact if we're doing something like recording audio for later usage?
So it isn't, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the sound that you're recording high enough above the noise of your system that you can work with it. And so if you record it really too low, you're still recording that noise out of your preamp. And then when you raise all of it, you're raising the noise and your level up, and it'll end up hissing. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the level of your preamp, here I'm using hands, the level of your noise of your preamp to be much lower than the sound you're getting out of the microphone. Now, there are things like if you want to use like a 32-bit recorder from Zoom or whatever, they claim that you can do all sorts of stuff with it. I've used it once or twice, and I still clipped. I don't know. Like I guess it's supposed to be unclippable, and I totally clipped it. Like clipped the crap out of it. I have a French horn player of no less did it. So technically you could use a 32-bit recorder to do that, but I would just get a better preamp. Okay, so those are some decisions. You may choose a dynamic microphone due to budget or due to the noise in your room, right? Like you may have a ton of noise, so you want to use a dynamic mic. And so like for the gentleman over there, like you might need to get closer to the microphone. Like you might need to have that like right here when you're doing stuff, right? Make it a part of your shtick, like as a Twitch streamer. Like actually use the microphone in front of you as opposed to doing something else, okay? Then you want to choose your pattern. This is the pickup pattern of the microphone, okay? And so we're going through this pretty quick, but like, and here's what you were saying about hypercardioid and supercardioid. So hypercardioid and supercardioid are narrow patterns, but they have a lobe at the back, which means they pick up what's behind them. They're very good for doing like voiceover in a room where you want it to be highly directional. Some people call these short shotgun microphones. They're used in movie and television on boom arms inside a room, okay? You don't, like, notice up here I don't have a shotgun microphone, that pattern. Don't use it. The only time you want to use a shotgun microphone is if you're outside, because that's what they were built for. They were built for doing stuff outside. You do it inside, it's going to sound weird, okay? I don't want to explain it. I will explain it if somebody really wants to know. Yes?
I don't need the microphone. Why are they called shotgun microphones when they act like snipers?
That is a
Like a
very
little
good point.
pedantic.
I don't know why they're called that, other than that they, I guess, because they're big and long, they kind of look like I don't know why they're called that. That's a very good question. So the question is, why are they called shotguns when they act like snipers? I don't know. That is a super good question. That's going to go up on that'll be a slide next year. Okay. So most of the time, I would stick with cardioid microphones. Cardioid microphones are the majority of microphones that are on the market. These are all cardioid microphones. And what they do is they prevent, as you can see from the drawing, they prevent sound from entering from the back, mostly. Like, all right, it's not like infinite darkness, but it's going to prevent things from behind it. We used it a lot in recording studio situations when we're trying to eliminate, when we're trying to isolate instruments. Like when in that recording you heard of the jazz band, all of those people were in the same room together. And so we had cardioid microphones on every instrument so that we could individually balance them as best as possible. So like you can use cardioid or hypercardioids and supercardioids if you're doing voiceover work, but again, stay away from the shotguns. Yes, question.
A little bit of a more of a kind of like newer-ish question because I'm still just kind of learning a lot of this stuff. Looking at the graph here, like the cardioid, I believe the little indent that's behind.
Yep.
So then the two circles on the hyper and the super, what exactly is that? Is that like the two little smaller circles?
Yes. So these are called polar plots, and what they do is they tell you the level of sound that the microphone will pick up due to direction. So these are, I can't zoom it in, but like if you were to zoom in, if you look it up, you'll see that at the very front of those microphones, it'll say 0 degrees, and it'll be at 0 dB, meaning that it picks up all of the sound, right? If you go behind it, you will see 180 degrees, and you will see negative however many dB, and that's the attenuation you get from behind it. So those different patterns, the hypercardioid and supercardioid, actually pick up some audio from behind them. It's very little compared to like an omnidirectional microphone, but it is still being picked up. So that's why we were talking over here about if you use hypercardioid in a sense of a live sound gig, what gives you feedback in live sound is the monitors, right? And what's happening is the audio from the guitars and the bass and the drums are going out into microphones, being amplified into the room, and that amplification is coming back into the microphones and being re-amplified, and then back and re-amplified and back and then you get this squeal, right? Because that's feedback. Right. So if you have the ability, like if you have that lobe at the back end, you increase feedback. Right. Yes.
Okay, I was confused about you saying for voiceovers because I'm used to seeing on Twitch people, having a voiceover along with the gameplay, but by voiceover, do you mean something pre-recorded? Because I know you say voiceover, but I'm not sure exactly what you mean in that context.
Okay, so the way I'm using, that's a good point. I should define my terms. So when I talk about voiceover, I'm talking about the recorded voice actors. Or if you are doing a podcast or if you're doing a YouTube video, your speech is the voiceover. It's the voice that is over top of the video or whatever.
Yeah, different from live.
Yeah, that is different from live. So this is recorded audio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're good.
Yes, an audiobook would also be voiceover. Okay. Here are some frequency plots. A frequency plot is just showing you what the microphone sounds like. What is the microphone going to emphasize? We have a TLM 103, which is something that people use a lot in the voiceover industry. Well, they use fancier ones, but this is the cheaper of the fancy ones. And you notice that it has a big bump in the high register. What this does is it enhances the brightness of the voice. And the reason why they like to use it is because the consonances of our speech is up in the high register. And so the more that's emphasized, the clearer your speech will sound. And so, again, this is something that we can do. Down below it, you will see the SM7B, which also has a little bit of high range and mid-range boost. So these are what we would call vocal microphones. I hate that because there's no such thing as a vocal microphone. There are just microphones that happen to be good at doing things, okay, that may involve the voice. But you will see many of the microphones that are being built these days have this signature because it is what everybody wants. So this is what you will see, okay? But we use this to pick. So like, for instance, if I had somebody if I had a person who wanted to do a really low, grumbly, like troll or something, I might want to use a microphone that doesn't emphasize some of that high range, that maybe it emphasizes more of the low range of something, right? Because when we get to the technique part of it, which we're going to get to right now, I want to get my audio as close to done in the recording session as possible, right? I want it to be as close to what I want it to sound like in the recording session. So all of you engineers out there, stop fixing it in the mix, right? Like, change the microphone. If it sounds like crap, don't use it, right? Do something different if you have that ability, okay? Question.
Coming to you.
A question is, do you finish it when it's done? What type of stuff do you? What is your recommended? Do you use, like, for example, Audacity or something? Do you have the audio? If you use Audacity to record, do you choose it there, or you like, or whatever type of audio stuff that you are using, or do you go into another media stuff to finish the editing there, like a Sony Vegas or whatever?
Oh, I usually pick one digital audio workstation, and that's what I do. I just pick one.
Oh.
So it'll either be Pro Tools or Reaper, maybe Logic if I'm feeling spicy, but usually it's just Pro Tools because that's what I use. But I will use just one digital audio workstation. Now, occasionally if I'm producing something like an album, I actually use two programs. So I produce it and record it and mix it in Pro Tools. And then I will move to Reaper or Wavelab to master it because they have better mastering tools.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I would do. All right, here's a tool that we don't have here, okay? We'll get your question 1 second. So, a pop filter. I'm just showing you, don't ever buy a pop filter. No more buying pop filters that are fancy and metal, all right? Look, you get an embroidery ring or a wire thing, and you get some pantyhose at Walmart, queen-size pantyhose. It's got to be big because you got to wrap it a couple times, and that equals pop filter. And if you don't trust me, I'll let people take pictures of that.
If it's good enough for the boss.
If it's good enough for Springsteen, it's good enough for you. Okay, that is from We Are the World from 1980. That was on the MTV. Like, people watched that, and I remember working in a studio back in the 90s. You would just replace the pantyhose. That's what you did. That's what you just went and bought pantyhose and replaced it, because no one wants to sing into someone else's pop filter. right? Like, because it's just gross. Like, people don't like it. So the idea is just use pantyhose. So again, a coat hanger or an embroidery ring if you want it to look fancy, because that's like you get a black embroidery ring and you get black pantyhose and it looks super slick, right? But it's just pantyhose, okay? Just do that. Forget buying the metal stuff. It's not worth it. Question?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. So, and no worries, if you're going to get to this later, feel free to mention that. But I was curious how you deal with mic bleed, especially because you were talking about like with mixing, I guess, live audio, just a lot of instruments. I'm thinking about drums in particular because I'm a drummer, but like mic bleed is a huge issue, and it's like you can never fully control it,
Right.
it seems like. So I'm curious, but I imagine it becomes just part of like the mixing process and how you're like, you incorporate it as part of what your mix for all these tracks and everything. So I was just curious how if you have any advice on managing it or how you've kind of dealt with it in the past.
So mic bleed, when it comes to doing instruments like drums or anything, what you're going to do, and I do this a lot, okay, especially in that jazz band record, you use microphones that have a pickup pattern that only picks up what's in front of it, okay? Now, you will get bleed from around it, but when that instrument is playing, it is going to be louder than the bleed, and everybody will just hear that. And then what you do, and this is super annoying, and people are going to think I'm silly, I go in and I manually mute every time the mic is not happening. So like, for instance, when the trombones are playing or the trumpets are playing in the trombone microphones are picking up the trumpets. So I go in and I highlight all the areas where the trombones are not playing and I mute it. So basically the trombones go ba and then it stops. Ba and it stops. So while it's on, there's bleed. But when it's off, it isn't. For drums, like toms, everybody wants to mic their toms, but nobody uses toms. All right? Like, I will actually ask the drummer, are you going to hit the toms? And they will say, of course. And I go, if you don't hit the toms on your first take through, I am turning those microphones off. Because it wastes, it wastes interface space. Like, that's 3 microphones possibly, right? But what I will do if they hit it once in a while is we'll listen to the whole thing, and then I'll go into my DAW afterwards, and I highlight every spot where they haven't hit the toms, and I cut it and mute it, cut it and mute it. Now, some people dig the bleed. Like, they think the bleed is part of the drum aesthetic. So you kind of have to decide project by project. But if you want something to sound tight, I would go in and manually do it. I would not use a gate. I would like literally manually go in and cut it out. Thank you.
Hi. I don't know if this is like a little bit too early because this is more of a mixing question, but I make a fiction podcast.
Okay.
And I have access to pretty decent dynamic microphones for most of my actors, but one of my voice actors had to move out of the state, and he happens to play my lead character. So
that's not
yeah, that's great. But basically, as I'm looking at producing further episodes, are there any and I know like the stuff about room was actually really helpful because that's kind of like the biggest thing is I had access to studio space before, but now my actor does not.
Right.
So especially because I'm mixing on like the vocal portion is like people with studio microphones, like the actors that I'll be with in person, and then my other actor. Is there any like kind of big tips or anything to look out for while mixing these kind of 2 different profiles?
Well, the first thing that I would do is so that's a very good question. This happens a lot, by the way. COVID did this to us. So we actually had to think about this. So what I did when I was producing an album during COVID was I actually bought a Zoom F6, but you could do like a Zoom F2, right? Because it's just a voice actor, just one person. That's a 32-bit recorder. It's not super expensive, right? You could get like a handy, like the H2 or whatever, right? But it's 32-bit. That means the actor can just record, and you don't have to worry about he or she screwing up like the levels, like because it just records it. It doesn't even let you change the levels. Like you can't do it. Like you just plug the microphone in and you do the performance, and then you would pick a microphone that best gets you as close as possible, but eliminates the room as best as possible. So you have to work with your actor to try to find a place in their house or their place to get it done, right? And then when you bring it back, you're going to use EQ and compression to try to match the rest of your group.
Okay. Anything you would suggest for the actor who has a USB microphone?
You send them an F2 and you send them a microphone.
Okay.
No, seriously.
That's good to know, yeah.
Okay, here you go. The panel that did the doing audio for animation, don't ever use a USB microphone. Just throw them out. They're not worth it. You can't control them. You can't do anything. Just get another microphone. Like get a microphone and a small interface. Or like a little portable recorder. It's just so much better than that.
So a portable recorder would be better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because then you could set it to like a 32-bit recorder. That way, Zoom makes a lot of them, and they're pretty cheap.
Okay.
That way, they don't have to worry about levels.
Okay.
It's a more amateur way of doing it.
Thanks.
Yes.
For situations like that, where let's say the actor now has a different microphone as well. This is something I did for an album I recorded where we didn't have the SM7B for only one song, and so we used a Sennheiser E835.
Okay.
Could you use something like Isotope EQ Match to try to basically create an IR of one microphone? So basically, like have the voice actor possibly do a take as similar as possible to an older take with the new microphone, and then EQ match it. Would that actually mimic that microphone? Yes.
So he's talking about using sort of like an AI-ish kind of thing for EQ, where you can actually have the AI listen to a particular recording, and then it matches the timbre, the frequency of the new microphone. That is actually possible, but what I would do is I would make sure you go in and use that as just a reference. Like, so you look at what it did, because it's going to look weird. It's going to have like all sorts of like these hyper cuts and hyper boosts everywhere, and just smooth it all out, and you probably get pretty close. All right, so we're going to kind of do technique and everything because I only got 10 minutes left. So which audio workstation do you want me to use? Logic, Reaper, or Pro Tools? Reaper. All right, everybody for Reaper, raise their hand. Everybody for Pro Tools, raise their hand. Everybody for Logic, raise their hand. All right, Reaper wins. Sorry. That's not Reaper. This is Reaper. Okay. Yay for Reaper. Okay,
Yay.
So what you see here is you see Reaper. Okay. So we have two voiceovers. Which one do you want to do? Well, let's see. Nick's a professional voiceover artist, so we'll do Nick. But I had both. Danielle is a student who just graduated. So this is her. I made them all do voiceovers. This is her one piece.
Wealth, fame, power. The man who had everything in this world. The pirate king, Gold Roger. The great treasure he left behind.
Okay. So it's wonderful. God bless her. This is Nick. This is, by the way, for YouTube, this is a fake Six Flags commercial. This is not real. So FYI, because voiceover actors have to make their own commercials to make reels. This is what he wrote. So this is not.
Kids hate the word no. As in, no, you can't stay up late. No, you can't have more ice cream. No, you may not paint the cat. No, no, no. Well, isn't it time for a yes? We think so. Six Flags of America, the U.S.'s #1 family theme park. Yes!
All right, so that is our voiceover. Very good, Nick. Let's hope he's working. All right, so I just wanted to show you this. So when we were in Tools, we had plugins, okay? Use the plugins that come in your digital audio workstation. They are good enough, okay? They are good enough until they're not good enough. Like if you need an AI matching EQ, you're going to have to figure that out. But generally, plugins are the worst investment you can ever make, ever. Okay? I have over 2,000 plugins, and I use approximately 7. Right? And I am purposefully, I am not as up on the Reaper plugins. They are fine, but I am not up on them. So you're going to see the plugins that I do use if we get to do the plugins so much here. Let's go. So I tend to use FabFilter plugins, but again, these are not they're not a real, this is not a problem, okay? So generally speaking, you're going to be using an EQ and a compressor. You could use external ones and buy hardware. Hardware is a much better investment because you can technically sell it later when you're ready to get rid of it, right? I would invest in microphones before I invest in any kind of plugin, because plugins are the new like magic fairy dust. Like they're like, oh, buy this plugin and you'll be immediately radio ready. Whatever, right? You can do it. It's fine. So, generally speaking, technique-wise, this is a way, not the way, okay? I'm really big on this. I provide a way, but not the way. So don't pretend, don't say, well, I'm doing this because I was told that this is the way to do it. There are millions of ways to do this. But the first thing that I will always do, this is an edited file, so I did edit this, but nothing has been done to it. You can see it's incredibly dynamic. And so what I'm going to do first is because when I listen to it, so I will listen to the file, and the first thing that jumps out at me as being wrong is a strong word. Not being right. No, that's the same as wrong. I don't know. The thing that sticks out tells me this is what I need to fix. Okay? So we're going to look at the compression. All right? We have 5 minutes. Let's see if we can do this.
Kids hate the word no. As in, no.
This is one of the reasons why I like Pro C2, because I can actually hear what it's doing.
No, you may not hate the cat. No, no, no. Well, isn't it time for a yes? We think so. Six Flags of America, the U.S.'s #1 family theme. Yes!
All right? So all you're hearing is this, right? And that's what I was hearing before. That was bothering me, because we are going to need to make this even. And so, because we need it to sit, just like podcasters. You need to all sit, and you don't necessarily want someone to be talking. So I listened to an audiobook a little while ago where it literally sounded like this. They were like, my life was great, and then I did this, and then my life was really good, and then and it was this in and out, and I was trying to listen in a car, and I was like, this is terrible, and so I just turned it off. So what you saw me do there was, I didn't touch the threshold because it seems pretty good there, but I changed the ratio. The ratio is just how much we're going to be compressing. And then I'm going to change the attack, which is going to tell me when the compressor starts. I'm going to change the release to when it stops working. Notice how they're very slow, because I want it to be very languorous in order to smooth out everything. And now we'll listen to what it sounds like.
Kids hate the word no. As in, no, you can't stay up late. No, you can't have more ice cream. No, you may not paint the cat. No, no, no. Well, isn't it time for a yes? We think so. Six Flags of America, the U.S.'s #1 family theme park. Yes!
See, now it sounds different. So if I do the same thing again, if I turn off the compressor and we just go here.
Of America, the U.S.'s #1 family theme park. Yes!
Let me go here.
Of America, the U.S.'s #1 family theme park. Yes!
See how it's so even now? And I know that I did that really quick, and you may be like, oh my God, compression, right? But this isn't a compression lecture, so ask me the questions and I'll teach you how to do the compression. It's not hard. What compressors do is they make loud things soft. That's all they do, right? So if I wanted this to be more aggressive, I might want to use like like maybe a bus compressor. And what this will do is it's a type of compressor.
Of America, the U.S.'s #1 family theme park. Yes!
That one you actually heard the compression. It was worse. Like, especially on the yes. The yes is supposed to be louder, or at least as loud, and it actually got softer. That's how I tell my compression is bad. When loud things sound softer than the soft things, your compression is wrong. And so the last thing that I would do with this now, because I think that the sound of it is pretty good, like the timbre of it, because again, I spent a long time picking microphones. But what I will always do, because I have 2 minutes, is I will always go and I will put a low pass filter on this. Sorry, a high pass filter. I always mix that up. I'm 47 years old and I still do it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting, I don't like Lear, I like natural face. Okay. What I'm doing is there are no frequencies in the voice below 100 hertz. Anyone's voice. Anyone. All it is errant harmonics that are in your room. Okay? Now I'm picking 120 here. That's probably wrong, but let's listen.
Of America, the U.S. is number one.
See, all you're hearing is right? We don't need that. So I'm
Of
going to get rid of it.
America, the U.S.'s number one family theme park. Yes!
So what I've done is just with this, just with a high pass filter, I've cleaned up the audio immediately. There is no reason to have, if the instrument doesn't have notes down there, then don't use it. Because there are instruments that do exist down there. So if you're mixing a band, the things that are down there are your bass, your kick drum, all of that stuff. If you've got extra things coming from your guitar, right, or your vocalist that are down there, all that's going to happen is it's going to build up and sound muddy. So what you do is you get rid of it. And in voiceover, we have no need for that bassiness. Now, if you did want more heft in his voice, maybe you would come in here and you'd say, okay, well, I want this to be more woofy.
Of America.
So I'm going to take this sound, which I honestly don't like.
Yes!
And I can raise it.
Of America, the U.S.'s number
Now it
one
sounds more
family
radio.
theme park. Yes!
Okay, I don't like radio. I think radio's dumb. So I'd rather do this. So I'd rather take it out.
Of America, the U.S.'s number one family theme park. Yes!
And that sounds cleaner to me. It sounds real. It sounds like the person's sitting next to me. But again, that is a project-based decision. Okay? Well, thank you, everybody. I hope I answered as many questions as I could.